Okay then, you lovely lot, we are once again at the beautiful Cudmore Fisheries on the bestest lake in the whole wide world, Drumble Lake. Basics time yet again, and we're going to be doing like an expander pellety fishing for skimmers. Obviously there's other fish in here as well, folks. There's some goldfish in here, but there's crucians, there's tench, but mainly this style of fishing that I want to show you is when not obviously it's going to last when it's rock bottom, when it's freezing cold, there's ice on venues and all that, but it works so well from like now on, folks. When you get them cold days, we've already had our first frost, this sort of like kind of pellety fishing with little babby expanders, 2mm and 4mm, we know with little tiny bits of ground bait. Oh god, it's so good, folks. But you've got to get a few fundamentals right. Yeah, it's really easy to do, but if you're anything like me and you like feeding, you can get away with yourself sometimes. So obviously that's what we're here today to show you. Obviously the little tiny amounts of feed that you need to keep these fish interested in your peg, and you can only really get away with it with like skimmers and what have you. So first things first, let me talk you through the rig. So I'm going to come back down to the elastic first. Elastic wise, obviously because it is mainly skimmers and we're getting in, it's so cold, folks, single 60 slip is probably the best all-round elastic for winter's fishing that I think you can get, folks. It is so good. It'll last you for ages, really cheap. So that's main thing, number one. Because obviously when you're lifting into these fish, and that's the thing, obviously when we're striking, it's not really a strike at all, it's more of a lift, and that's what we'll be doing. That elastic just cushions everything. So, dead fine elastic. Next thing is mainline. Now I've only got on a 0.14 mainline. We've got it out here. Here we go. 0.14 Aki Power. Now we're in the winter, folks. That is what I'd go down to. Yeah, not really anything wrong with using a 15 or a 16, but I just think using a 14 doesn't sort of like get the drag of the water or anything like that if it's really windy and undertow, and I'm not going to be going over anything like heavier than a 0.10 upland, so I just think a finer mainline. It works for me anyway, folks, so you know what I mean, that's why I've gone onto it. Now, coming down the rig, we have got two number 8s back shots. It's not a bit of fluff on the line, folks. I've Tipex them out white because I'm in dark water. You know how much I love to Tipex the back shots out when I'm in dark water. Now, onto the float itself. Now, this is where you've really got to sort of pay attention to your rig, certainly for skimmers and what have you. You must fish positive. Even if it was like, 3 foot shallower, I was only fishing in sort of like 3.5 foot, something like that, I'd still use a 4/16 float, folks. Now, carbon or wire, when it goes really cold and sort of like really pungy, then bites are really hard to hit, then I'd definitely recommend a wire, so it's really stable. But I've got a carbon stem on today. For the time being, it won't really make that much difference. But this thing here, folks, your bristle size, 100% that makes a difference, because the bites, flipping heck, it's like, did that move then? And like you lift up and there's a fish on. So obviously Rich will get zoomed in on his big doofer today, and you'll see how dotted down I've got the float. Well, it looks dotted down to me, but it might not to you at home, because that's what Rich's big doofer does. But literally I've got a tiny little bit of grease actually on the bristle, probably about 4mm down, and you know, it sort of distances, I can't tell you what difference it makes. So that is main thing number one, making sure you have a nice positive float regardless of depth. Now, speaking of depth, it's 6.5 foot where we are today, so it is pretty deep. I could get away with a heavier float if I wanted to, but 4/16s, don't really want to go any heavier than that if the wind's not overly bad. Now, coming down to the shot itself, so you can see there, that's where my hook is. I'm holding my hook there in my right hand, and look where my shots end. So what's that? 12 inches, 12 or 13 inches. And what we've got is we've got a tapered shotting pattern. I'll talk you from the hook end first. So we've got a 4-inch hook length on, which is 0.10 to a size 16 SFLB hook. Now, you can get these straight out of the packet, but just make sure you shorten them down. There's no room for sort of 6-inch hook lengths on this, folks. Certainly for these skimmers, you've got to be fishing positive, because as I said, the bites are horrendous. Now, notice where my first shot is. Well, it's a stop actually. It is on my hook length. So what's that, sort of 3.5 inches from my hook or something like that? That telltale shot there is so important, folks. It really highlights the bites on your float. Now, I'm fishing sort of like to the bottom of the body of my float, so I'm quite a bit over depth. Now, I'm fully expecting as many lift bites as I am little dinks. Usually it's little dinks, but I'm fully expecting the odd lift bite as well. So stop overshot, because a shot's a little bit too harsh in your line to put in your hook length, but I've no problem at all putting a stot on there. So first things first, a single number 9 stot. And then you can see the same distance again, sort of 4 inches, we've got a number 9 shot. And then 2 inches, we've got a number 9 shot. And then all these are number 8. So we've got 5 number 8. So an inch, quarter of an inch, and then all close together. So basically tapered. So it's going straight down, and then your rig is coming in like that, and we're sort of like fishing in that manner there. So obviously the skimmers are taking your bait, and it's just registering on that first shot straight away. It's such a positive, effective way of fishing for these skimmers, folks. It's like proper good, you get used to it. So that's the rig talk through. I don't really bother with any other rigs, folks. If I know I'm going for skimmers, or for this time of year, I just fish one rig. One rig does all. As long as it's pellet fishing that you're on, it'd be completely different with maggots, but we're fishing pellets today. So first thing I've got is, you can see there, I've got my 2 mils floating in the water. Now obviously sometimes the weight of your hook will sink them. What I always like to do is check. So I'll hook the pellet, put my hook back into that water, and if it sinks it, brilliant. If not, just give that. Are you focusing on that one, Rich? I can show you. Can you see that one there?
Do one close towards you.
Oh, this one here. Right, go ahead. Right, so that one there, folks, yeah? If it is floating like that, all you've got to do is grab the pellet, give it a little squeeze, and then it'll sink. See it sinking ever so slowly there? Yeah, that's all you've got to do. But usually the weight of your hook will sink them little babby ones. The bigger ones, however, let me bring this formula over here. So the bigger ones here, oh, it's blooming sunk now because it's squozen me a little bit. But they will sometimes hold your hook up if you're only on a fine wire hook. So you must make sure that you squeeze them. So I've just got a mixture of 2 mils and 4 mils in there in water. I've got the other ones in there, they're the ones that I've prepared. Obviously, we'll talk you through later, I'll prepare them. But what I do is I like to put just a few in at a time. So that's our hook bait. We've got micros, so 2 mils Screttings micros. Very important now we're into the winter, folks, that you completely soak these just so they're just beneath the surface of the water and leave them. Either prepare, I like to prepare them the night before, put them in the fridge, and then they're absolutely perfect for the morning after. They'd be horrendous for the method because they're too spongy. But for this time of year, for feeding them, you want to get all that weight into them and basically look same as what you've got on the hook. Such an effective way of fishing. So that's your micros. The other feed bait we've got, which we stress, is so important this time of year, folks, is our Super Crush Expander ground bait. Obviously, loads of different ground baits on the market, but me personally, the Super Crush Sonny Bait Super Crush Expander is the best. It's basically 1-to-1. So 1 tub of ground bait, 1 tub of water, leave it, riddle it, and that's what you're left with. So literally starting out, in fact, we'll start off in a sec so I can show you what I'm feeding, but that's what I'd start off with just a few micros in, and then I'll get straight over the top of my rig. So I reckon, without further ado, we'll cut to me putting some bait in, and then go catching some fishes. Right, can't wait to get going again, folks. But just before we do, I'm going to show you the amounts of feed that you'd be likely to experience, when you're starting off a session, and we don't want to be putting lots of food in. That's me talking now, folks, isn't it? It's me talking now. So, the little big pot, 125, 150 mil. What are they, Rich? I don't even know what they are. 125, I think. Right, I'm going to show I'll show you first, Richard, then I'll show the GoPro. So basically, I just want a little tiny sort of grape-sized ball that I'll just give it one of them. That ain't going to get down to the bottom like that, folks. That will be breaking up within sort of like a foot, 2 foot. But it's them like particles that come off it in sort of like the old little bits and little nicky-nacky news. The fish love them. And then obviously our really overwet micros. Yeah, that's all we've got. What's there? Probably flipping heck. 30, maybe 30, 40 micros. That's it. They go in the top loose. And that is what we're left with. Yeah? Hardly anything in there. You can zoom in on that, Richard, as well. Yeah, nothing at all. So I'm going to put this out, let it settle for a couple of minutes while I come back and obviously talk you through the importance of your little toss pots next. I wasn't calling all you lot toss pots, folks. I mean about the little pots that you have on the end of your pole. So markers wise, again, I love to like line up on my markers on my middle leg. My little babby middle leg. So the joint is on there, and obviously I've got my little half extension behind me, and I've got a silver birch in the distance, and that's what my marker is. So nice and accurate there. Hoink, put my bait in. Now whilst that's settling, you can see that just under the surface. It looks, oh God, look at the conditions on it. Now the thing obviously on a lot of these sort of skimmery venues is the silty bottoms. So what you'll probably see is like that already. You'll see like bubbles start to form. Now obviously that's just giving you confidence straight away, folks, but one thing that you must do is put that plummet back on pretty often, just to make sure that you're on the depth and that kind of thing, because as soon as you start missing bites that are hooking and funny, usually them skimmers have come in and scoured the bottom out. So make sure you keep checking, especially with like these fish meal baits. Right, so next one is, I'm just going to put that on my longer, on my number 3, folks, so I can keep everything nice and tight. Come back there, I'm going to hook that into the bottom. I'm going to talk you through the different pots that you're likely to encounter. So, right, so for the likes of somewhere like, let's say Medlands or Barson or something, where it's like bigger skimmers and deeper water, I'd probably use something like that, you know, fill it full of micros, but obviously it's all about on the day what's happening with how many fish that you're catching. If there's a lot there, you might want to put a full one of them in every go. If it's smaller skimmers, like hand-sized skimmers, certainly like here, you might want to feed something like that to start with every sort of 2 or 3 fish. But one thing is for sure, it might be I use that for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, just get a few fish in a peg. But after that, that's where these come into play, folks, yeah? Little tiny babby pots. Obviously, we've got that little tiny one there that I used to have to put blue tack in so I didn't feed them up. And then we've got the homemade fruit shoot pots. These ones, I love feeding through them, folks, because they've got the holes already built in for you. That, you know, that bait can escape nice and quickly. And when you buy a bottle of water, they're free. And we're doing our bit for the environment because we're not like throwing them away with the plastic. So literally all I do there is just tie the elastic through the holes in there, just go through once, and then that just goes over your pole pot. That's it. Basically, your pole pot sort of goes in the middle there, that folds back round, and then it just stays on top of your pole pot. Really, really easy to do, but that is all you'll be feeding. And sometimes not even, well, certainly not even sometimes, when it's like proper cold, all you'll be feeding is like a quarter or half of one of them. I can't stress the importance of, you don't have to put a lot of bait in for this, folks, because the Super Crush is so potent, so rich, it keeps fish sort of like mooching around for ages. They know there's something there because they can sense it because of the oils in the ground bait. And then obviously all they've got to eat is whatever micros you're putting in. You have got to be careful and not put too much bait in, folks. That is the thing with pellet fishing, certainly for skimmers, because you can definitely overdo it and just get too many fish in your peg and ruin it. So it's always better, obviously, judging the size of the fish. If it's hand-sized ones, usually 3 or 4 fish to a feed. If it's bigger ones, a feed every fish or every other fish something. It's all about experiment on the day. So for the time being, we're going to put this little babby one on. In fact, I want to put my homemade one on. Let's put my homemade one on. So that just literally just gets wrapped round there. So pull the elastic back, wrap round there. That goes round there like that. And there we go. So you can see how that's attached on there, yeah? So I've just sort of like lassoed it over, like you would a Dacron, I suppose. And obviously we've got like a 2-inch gap from the pole tip to the pot, so just bear that in mind every time we're feeding. Right, enough waffling, folks. Let's get on and go and snare some little poppadoms. So I'm going to go in with, a 2mm expander first. So I'm just going to get a 2mm one out here. Very important that you're hooking it. Obviously, the grain of the pellet is running down lengthways like that. So what I want to do is pull it out to the side and then just put my hook right into the middle and just fold it round like that. And then just make sure that the actual weight of your hook is sinking the pellet, which it is. That's fine. I'm not going to feed, obviously. I'm hoping that there's going to be fish over that feed that I've already put in. I'm just going to ship out nice and quick and show you how I'm laying the rigging as well, which is pretty important. A couple of different ways of laying it in. Obviously we want to get straight down there and get into them fish straight away. So I'm going to pull the shots back over my marker, pull the float over, hold it out, and then with skimmers, what they do like to do is watch your bait down. So hold it nice and straight and then just drop it. So you can see you're fishing straight away. Oh God, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Now we're going to catch like little roach as well, but it's predominantly skimmers that we're going to catch on this. Little babby skimmers like this. Don't think about swinging them, folks. Net everyone, because You know what happens when you start swinging these fishes? They can fall off, and obviously your rig gets tangled, especially using finer line. So look where you're hooking them. All important. You getting in on that, Richard? Yeah. This is like ideal where you're hooking them, the top of the lip. If ever they're down here or around the mouth, then generally that's a sign that something's wrong with you know, how deep you're fishing. Usually you've gone a little bit more over depth or off bottom or something like that, so just pay attention to it. Next thing obviously with skimmer fishing, folks, pay attention to this. Yeah, make sure all that slime's off. And there we go, then we're fishing again. So I'm going to put 4mm one on this time, so I'm going to do a light squeeze. Obviously I wouldn't change anything in matches, but it'd be nice to get something big while we're going. He sinks, get that elastic going back in. Not feeding again, folks. Yeah, don't need to feed again. That feed, certainly with that size of fish, blooming heck, that feed that we initially put in will last a good sort of 4 or 5 fish maybe. So again, bring your shots back, put your float over, wait for it to straighten up, lower that rig down, and then just drop, and then you're fishing straight away. Obviously remember how quick that bite was last time. The thing with this is you're striking. It's literally just a lift up like that, and if you miss it, you're straight back in again. Yeah, you don't want to be sort of like I used to always blooming do, folks. Lift that rig all the way out and lay it in again. You just, that over 5 hours, certainly if you're match fishing, you're just spending too much time. And obviously with the bait being so light, it is prone to falling off if you strike too hard. So we can see there, obviously them bubbles coming up, we can see this fish there. Just taking it a little bit longer on a 4mm, which I'd expect anyway, just a little bit bigger bait. But I don't think it'll be long before we get a bite. I said that the bites are horrendous sometimes, you know. Did that move? That was a little dink then. Saw that? Yep, he's on. He swam off the bottom slightly then. I was just about to lower that again and he swam off. It's just ridiculous, folks, isn't it? It's such an effective way of fishing. So slightly bigger pellets, slightly bigger fish. It's not always the case, you know what I mean? But more often than not it is. And again, we're definitely not going to swing them. And this is why you need that nice soft elastic, folks, yeah? Especially for skimmers. The other thing that I'd recommend as well, certainly for obviously match fishing, make sure you get yourself a nice longer landing net handle, because as soon as them, look at them, they're like 2 of them and you've got like around, well, just less than a pound, I'd say. So 3 of them with just over a pound. Yeah, nice long landing net handle, because as soon as them fish pop up, you've got to make sure you're on them. If you wait and you know what I mean, miss them, then sometimes you can bump them fish. So you've got to be really careful sometimes. So, little 4mm pellet on, nice and quick. It's just so effective, folks, isn't it? And there's nothing complicated. The complication for me with this style of fishing comes with that feeding. You've got to be strict on yourself. If you just put bait in every single time you went out, which you'd think you'd want to because there's a lot of fish there, you need to keep them there. You really, really don't need to. And that's like coming from someone like me telling you not to feed. So get the float down to there, drop it in. Then when them skimmers are proper having it, they nail it straight away because they're watching that bait down. You can see there's odd bubble coming up there as well. Now, one thing that will work as well, certainly when there's a lot of fish there, is lifting and dropping. So little tiny movements like that. I love a lift and a drop, as you know. And that's usually when you get your bites, just after that little babby movement. And, excuse me, experimenting by fishing around your feed as well. I'm right over my feed there, I'm on my joint. But later on into the session, I'll go past my feed, that can work well, left and right, that kind of thing. Excuse me. It certainly works really well for skimmers. Now, you can see this time it's just gone that little bit slower in a bite. I've not had many signs. The fish, I can see the fish is still there, so it might be that I need to feed again this time. Because don't forget, there's no food, there's a little dink then, there's no feed content in the ground bait. The only thing that they, see there's, I'm going to say I thought there's one on there because it just come up a little bit. The only feed content really them skimmers have got, ooh, another little dink, is the micros. That's all they can really eat on. So obviously if they've all been nailed and the fish are just sort of like scenting, there's nothing to home in on. So this next go I'll probably put a little bit more bait in. I'm not going to put any ground bait in, any super crush. I'm just going to put pellets in so they've got physically something to eat. Because we have had a frost, you know, it's gone proper cold, but it's not like winter cold yet, you know what I mean? So the fish will still be pretty active. I'm just going to bring that back into, you see how them little knocks and all that? That's that number 9 back shot just showing all them little tiny dinks up there, folks. Yeah, but you can see, a bit windy then, you can see how low I've got that float dotted down. What a difference that makes. It really does. I can't stress that enough. You've got to have that float dotted. I'm just going to go a little bit further past it. The mat's scoured that blooming bottom out already. So I've gone like, what, 4 inches past my marker now. Just gone into a little bit harder bottom. You can see where the main amount of fish are fizzing. So if you've got too many there, I mean, that's just off that one feed, folks. It just shows you. If you've got too many there, they'll be erupting that lake bed up, and obviously they can't see your hook bait. Well, we got a much quicker bite on a 2mm that first time, so next time I come back I'll probably put a 2mm on again. Might be a smaller fish, but it's all about getting that quicker bite. Oh, I bumped him. So my bait's still on, but I'm going to come back and feed again. So get me, change me up bait. I'm going to put a 2mm back on. But what I'm going to do is feed a little bit of bait this time. Only sort of half a pot or something like that, quarter of a pot. I'm not going to put loads in. Drop that down there, literally a few micros, and just sort of like, what? Yeah, half to quarter fill that pot. Just get a little bit of bait in, because it looks as though they're like really active and they're wanting to eat. But you know, this could be wrong. You know, I could still be catching fish off that feed. Don't think it will be. I think it'll be right, but we'll see what happens. So get me marker, line up with that tree. That's in. Tap that out. Come back. Put that in. Get your shots over where you're fishing. So it's just being sort of like strict on yourself every time. We know there's a lot of fish there. We can see them fizzing. Hold that float out until it comes straight, and then drop it. So you're fishing straight away. Look at them fizzing there, folks. Ridiculous. So I expect a quicker bite this time, with it being a smaller bait. I'm not going to move it just yet. I'm just going to leave it, see what happens. Obviously the micros will still be falling through the water. A little dink then. But that striking's the one. You don't have to strike too hard, because obviously, you know, the soft elastic, that hook will soon come through that pellet. Obviously being a really soft bait. If you struck too hard, then obviously all you're doing is striking your bait off. And certainly with soft mouth skimmers, you don't really need to strike hard. Just going to give that a little bit of movement now. There we go. So them markers will be on the bottom now. Fish should be coming in. Go on, the fishies. Them little poppadoms. Come on, the little poppadoms. You see this fish there? Oh, that was a little dink then. That was a little dink then. Well, this is what you'll get, and that's why it's so important that you have that that telltale shot on. Yeah, that little shot on your hook length, so you can really sort of pay attention to them little tiny dinky bites. Because them skimmers, flipping heck, they're in. Well, you've seen what the bites are like. Again, there, another little tiny dink. Just an absolute nightmare at times, yeah. Just moved out my marker a little bit, there we go. But look at fizzing, you can see there's a lot of fish there. Oh, it's so good. Go on, the fishies. Go on, the fishies. That's the other thing as well, though, just make sure you've got a slightly longer line, pull tip to float, than what you think you'd need. Just to allow for, obviously, the wind. But certainly them back shots, it makes such a difference in keeping your rig nice and stable. I thought we'd have a much quicker bite then on that 2mm. I'm going to put a 4mm back on. I think at the minute there's a lot of fish there, and they're just sort of, obviously when they're searching for that bait, they need a bigger standout bait, so that's why I'm going to go on to a 4mm rather than a 2mm. Did I lose my pole again then, Rich? My pole keeps coming disappearing. That's because I've shipped off at the wrong bit. And I'm going to go a little bit further out, because I'm convinced they've scoured that bottom out there, so I'm just going to go a little bit further out. And we've got a 4mm on. So hold it out, hold it out, hold it out, hold it out, and drop. Oh, here's someone's had that on the drop. Yeah, so you see him watching that bait down. It's mad, isn't it? A little babby fish. Don't swing them, folks. You've got to net them, Got to net them. I'm going to have another go again. I want to get down to the bottom. Have another go again. But shows you how active the fish are, doesn't it? Ridiculous. Such a quick, effective way of fishing. Really is. You've got to be careful with them blooming pellets. I can't stress that enough. So hold it out to go a little bit further. And this is where the little babby extensions come into play, yeah? Or having a section behind you. And just keep fishing around it. Look at them fishing there. Go on, the fishies. Oh yeah, we're set. Go on. So a little dink then. Another little dink. Drop him down. Another little dink. Drop him down. So many fish there, folks. There we go. Yeah, saw them bites that we had. What, 2 bites there, missed him, and obviously had that one. It will take you a bit of getting used to. I'm not gonna lie. It took me a long time to get used to the style of fishing, folks, but I absolutely adore it now. It's so good. You can do some silly weights. You know what I mean? When you start getting these and you start getting the big ones as well, they don't halfway up them kind of fish. Yes. And that, I think, is all there is to it, folks. But as I said, make sure you pay special attention to feeding. Feeding's the all important one with this style of fishing. As you've seen, you know, I put that bait in at the start. I'd probably still be catching over that, but I put them micros in, and obviously we had them little tiny dinks. Put 2 more back on, it wasn't right. You just got to keep experimenting on the day. But when you get them there, and it's obvious that the fish are there, the skimmers, you have one of the best days fishing ever. Certainly like when it gets even colder and it's really focusing and zoning the fish into one particular area. It's amazing. At the minute still, it's probably that little bit too warm, so the fish want to be off the bottom, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But the colder it gets, this style of fishing, the pellet fishing for the skimmers, get on it, folks. You will absolutely love it. Hope you've enjoyed that as much as me, folks. I'm going to carry on and catch some more fishies.